Picture the gunfight you've seen 1,000 times. Two men in a dusty street at high noon, hands hovering over holsters tied down low on the thigh. A long stare, a twitch, and the faster man walks away while the other drops in the dirt. It's the most famous image the American West ever gave us. And it's a lie. In the entire history of the frontier, that clean one-on-one quick-draw duel happened, as far as the records show, exactly twice. Everything else, every real gunfight that actually put men in the ground, looked nothing like the movies. They were uglier, faster, closer, and a lot stranger. So forget the quick draw. These are the 10 gunfights that actually happened, the real ones, ranked, and by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand why the deadliest gunfight in the West is one you've probably never even heard of. A quick fair warning. The truth is bloodier than the legend. Let's go. Before we count, burn one thing into your mind, because every fight on this list proves it. The fast draw, the low-slung holster strapped to the leg, fanning the hammer with your palm, all of it is Hollywood invention. Real frontier men carried their pistols shoved in a waistband, a coat pocket, or a plain belt holster, and the man who won was almost never the fastest. He was the one who stayed cool, aimed, and had already decided to shoot while the other man was still talking. Speed was a myth. Surprise and accuracy were everything. Keep that in mind, because it explains all 10. Number 10. The one real duel. Hickok and Tut. Let's start with the rarest thing in the whole West, an actual face-to-face duel, because it's the exception that proves how fake the legend is. On a July evening in 1865, in the town square of Springfield, Missouri, Wild Bill Hickok and a gambler named Davis Tutt faced each other over a stupid argument about a card debt and a pocket watch. They stood about 75 yards apart. That's most of a football field. Tutt fired first and missed. And here's the part Hollywood always gets backward. Hickok did not blaze away from the hip. He raised his pistol, steadied it across his other forearm, took his time, aimed, and put a single ball through Tutt's chest at 75 yards. One careful shot. The lesson that one real duel teaches is the exact opposite of every movie ever made. The man who won wasn't the fastest. He was the calmest and the most accurate, and the courts let Hickok walk on self-defense. Number 9. The duel that was really just a brawl. Loving and Richardson. People who know a little history will tell you there was a second duel, and there was, sort of. But look at what it actually was. In a Dodge City saloon in 1879, two gamblers, Frank Loving and Levi Richardson, who simply hated each other, ended up in the same room with guns. There was no count of 3, no facing off. They just started shooting at close range inside a crowded saloon, scrambling around a stove, firing again and again in the smoke and panic. When it was over, Richardson was dead, and Loving was barely scratched. That's what a real gunfight looked like. Not elegant, not honorable. Two men emptying their guns in a cramped room while everyone else dove for cover. The duel is already starting to look like a myth, and we're only on number 9. If busting these myths with the real record is your kind of thing, do me a favor and hit subscribe now, because it only gets better from here. Number 8. The fight that made a legend kill his own best friend. Hickok again. Here's the one that should haunt you, because it broke the most famous gunfighter in the West. 1871, Abilene, Kansas. Wild Bill Hickok, now the town marshal, gets into a street confrontation with a saloon owner named Phil Coe. Shots are fired, and Hickok guns Coe down. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Hickok sees a figure rushing toward him through the chaos and the dark, and on pure instinct, he spins and fires twice. He killed the man instantly. It was Mike Williams, his own deputy and friend, running to help him. Wild Bill Hickok, the deadliest name in the West, killed his own friend by accident in the middle of a gunfight, and it gutted him. He never fought another gun battle for the rest of his life. So much for the cool, infallible gunslinger. The real thing was a chaos so total that the best in the business shot the wrong man. Number 7. The Vendetta and the Shotgun. Wyatt Earp at Iron Springs. Everyone thinks Wyatt Earp was a fast draw artist. Watch what he actually did when it was personal. After his brothers were ambushed, Earp went on what's now called his vendetta ride, hunting the men responsible. In 1882, at a place called Iron Springs, he rode straight into an ambush by the Cowboys gang. And here's how the deadliest lawman of the era fought for his life. Not with a quick-draw revolver. He came up with a shotgun and killed Curly Bill Brocious at close range in a stand-up fight, while bullets tore his coat and saddle. The most famous gunman in the West, in the fight that mattered most to him, reached for a shotgun, because when your life is truly on the line, you don't want fast, you want devastating. To this day, some argue about whether Curly Bill even died there, but the lesson stands. The legend won his real fights with a scattergun, not a fancy draw. If you're the kind of person who wants the true history, the version the movies stole from you, that's this whole channel, so subscribe and stay to the end, because the top 3 are where the legend completely falls apart. Number 6. The second duel that wasn't. Short and Courtright. This is the other duel the history books count, and just like the first, the reality undercuts the myth. 1887, Fort Worth, Texas. Gambler. Luke Short and former lawman Jim Courtright, bad blood between them, end up face to face on the street. It sounds like the movie at last. But Short didn't outdraw him in one clean motion. When it started, Short simply put a volley of bullets into Courtright, firing fast and repeatedly until the man went down. No single dramatic shot. No honor. Just a man who shot first, shot a lot, and lived. Even the West's 2 most famous duels were really just 2 men who knew that the way to survive was to be the one still firing when the smoke cleared. Number 5. The most famous gunfight in history was over in 30 seconds, and it wasn't a duel at all. The OK Corral. Now the big one, the fight every Western worships, and almost nothing you picture about it is right. October 1881, Tombstone, Arizona. First, it didn't even happen in the OK Corral. It was in a cramped, vacant lot down the street. Second, it wasn't a duel. It was 8 men crammed into a space the size of a garage. The Earps and Doc Holliday walked up on the Clantons and McClorys, and from a distance of just a few feet, all hell broke loose. Virgil Earp shot Billy Clanton point blank in the chest. Doc Holliday, the legend, wasn't twirling a 6-gun. He was leveling a shotgun, and he blew Tom McClory off his feet with it. The whole thing lasted about 30 seconds, and around 30 shots flew in that tiny lot. 3 men dead, 3 of the lawmen wounded, and the Earps were charged with murder afterward. The most legendary gunfight in American history was a 30-second, point-blank shotgun and revolver brawl in an alley. Not one quick draw in the whole thing. Number 4. 4 dead in 5 seconds, and the first man to die was innocent. Staudenmeier. Here's how fast and how ugly a real gunfight actually was. El Paso, Texas, 1881. Dallas Staudenmeier had been town marshal for about a week. A drunk man grabbed another man's pistol and shot a constable in the street. Staudenmeier was eating dinner across the way, heard the shot, and came running out with a pistol in each hand, already firing. And his very first bullet missed his target completely and killed an innocent bystander who was running for cover. Then he found his aim, shot the drunk between the eyes, and helped gun down a third man. 4 men dead in about 5 seconds. Think about what that really tells you. A real gunfight was so fast and so chaotic that a skilled marshal's opening shot killed the wrong person entirely. There was no time to aim, no honor, no fair warning. Just 5 seconds of noise and smoke and 4 bodies, one of whom never even had a gun. Number 3. The gang that got shot to pieces by a town full of farmers. Northfield. This might be my favorite because it destroys the myth of the invincible outlaw. By 1876, the James Younger gang were the most feared men in America, Jesse James himself among them. They rode into Northfield, Minnesota to rob the bank, expecting terrified townsfolk. Instead, the bank clerk, a man named Joseph Lee Haywood, flat out refused to open the safe, even with a gun in his face, and a local shouted down the street, "Get your guns, boys, they're robbing the bank." And the citizens of Northfield, store clerks, students, farmers, grabbed their rifles and shotguns and opened fire from the windows and doorways. They shot the gang to ribbons. 2 outlaws dead in the street, the younger brothers riddled with bullets and captured, only Frank and Jesse James escaping. The most dangerous gang in the history of the frontier was effectively wiped out, not by a famous lawman or a quick-draw hero, but by an angry town of ordinary armed men who refused to be robbed. That is the real West. And if you're still with me, you're going to want to be subscribed for the top 2, because number 1 is the gunfight that proves everything I've been telling you. Number 2. The deadliest lawmen versus outlaw battle you've never heard of. Ingalls. In 1893, in the little town of Ingalls, Oklahoma Territory, U.S. Marshals rolled in hidden in covered wagons to spring a trap on the Doolin gang, the so-called Wild Bunch. What followed was, by serious accounts, the deadliest battle ever fought between organized outlaws and federal marshals. When the shooting started, the outlaws, holed up and shooting from cover, cut the lawmen down. 3 deputy marshals were killed, along with townspeople caught in it, and most of the gang shot their way out and escaped that day. No quick draws, no Main Street, just a brutal, close-quarters gun battle of men shooting from windows and behind walls, and it cost more lawmen their lives than the OK Corral ever did. The famous fights get the movies. This one got the bodies. And number 1, the deadliest gunfight in the West is one almost nobody has ever heard of: the Newton Massacre. Here's the truth that ties this whole list together. The most famous gunfights, the OK Corral, the duels, were not the deadliest. And the deadliest was not famous at all. In 1871, in the cattle town of Newton, Kansas, in a dance hall in an area called Hyde Park, a revenge quarrel boiled over into gunfire. And when it was finished, that single shootout had killed and wounded more men than the gunfight at the OK Corral. More than the 4 dead in 5 seconds. By body count, it was deadlier than the most legendary gunfights in American history, combined with each other. And here's the kicker. The thing that proves how upside down the legend really is. Not one of the men involved was a famous gunfighter. No Earp, no Hickok, no Doc Holliday. The shooters were nobodies, cowboys and railroad men whose names you've never heard. And the fight made none of them famous. It just left a pile of bodies in a Kansas dance hall and faded from memory, while a 30-second scuffle in a Tombstone alley became the most retold story in the West. That is the final proof. Fame in the Old West had almost nothing to do with how deadly a fight really was. The bloodiest gunfight on this list is the one Hollywood never bothered to film, because none of the dead men were stars. So there's the real West. 10 gunfights that actually happened. Not a single high-noon quick draw among them, except one carefully aimed shot at 75 yards and one 4-shot volley. The rest were ambushes, shotguns, saloon brawls, accidents, angry townsfolk, and 5 seconds of chaos that killed an innocent man. The duel you grew up watching is the one thing that almost never happened. The real gunfights were faster, closer, uglier, and decided by who kept his head and who shot first, not who drew fastest. These weren't cowards, and they weren't movie heroes. They were practical, dangerous men in a world where a fair fight was a good way to die, and they fought accordingly. So tell me, because I read these, which of these real gunfights surprised you the most, and which Hollywood gunfight scene can you never watch the same way again now that you know how it really worked? And the big one, had you ever even heard of the Newton Massacre before today? Put it below. There's a new piece of the real frontier here all the time, the history the movies painted over, so subscribe and the next one rides in.